more about yourself, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thanks so much. And also to Graham as well for organising this. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I can see some familiar faces, which is great. Actually, before I get started, I just wondered how many people are familiar with carbon literacy, or if anyone here is totally new to carbon literacy. If you could just either raise your hand on the screen, or you can use one of the reactions on your Zoom bar, just so I know if you're completely new to carbon literacy.
So those people who are new to carbon literacy, raise your right hand. Say after me.
Okay, great. I can see a couple of hands. That's nice. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Okay, it's great to have people who are completely new to carbon literacy, so I can help you guys to understand it a little bit more as well. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Abby. I'm the local authorities coordinator for the carbon literacy project. So what that means is I end up working with all kinds of local authorities, from parish, town, community councils, and all the way up to and including combined authorities as well. So a nice broad range of different organisations to work alongside and help with their carbon emissions education and their wider climate education too. So I will just see if I can share my presentation with you guys. 1 second. So you should be able to see this, hopefully, from the beginning, if I can get it back there. 1 second. Can you see my presentation okay as it gets back to the beginning?
Not yet, no. I always have trouble with this because I have to get the file on screen and then press the button for the slideshow. Doesn't seem to let me do it the other way. Again, this is my technical reputation going down in flames again.
Might be potentially that it's loading up, but I can see it from my side. I don't know if you guys can see it from your side.
Oh, we see nothing. Yes.
Do you see my face though?
Oh, we can see your face. Yes.
Maybe I'll just go ahead and use the presentation in the background and then chat you through some bits as well. I'll try one different way of doing. Can you see the presentation now?
No, you are using the share screen button.
Yeah, let me just see if I
should be able to do that.
This one.
Graham, she's okay to share screen, isn't she? I know.
If you move your mouse to the bottom of the screen at the center, you should get a green share button.
Yeah, I do have that. So it says that
then you have to select the screen that you want to show, or you can just select the top left one, and then there's a second share button on the bottom right.
So I have it says that I'm sharing, but I think there also says please grant browser access as well. Let me see. I think what I'll do is, instead of wasting time with my settings, I will just chat you through what I have on my PowerPoint instead, and then you can just come back at me with any questions, if that's okay.
We're on the good ship, great collaboration, surfing through cyberspace.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go ahead and just tell you a little bit about what I've been doing with carbon literacy and how we're working at the moment across not only the local authority sector, but also more widely, and also thinking about parish, town and community councils a little bit more in depth too. And I'll drop some links into the chat when I've finished speaking for things around our email address if you want to get in touch with us, and also our website and our sign up for our newsletter. We've got a local authority specific newsletter for carbon literacy, where you'll find loads of different updates, case studies, useful tools and articles and so on. So I'll share all of those once I've finished speaking. But I think some of you might already know around parish, town and community councils, the course itself, but it was developed with the then government department BEIS, which is Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and Greater Manchester Combined Authority. And we also had some help in developing the Parish, Town Community Councils course with Speak Carbon Collective, who some of you might know, and the wonderful Save Our Shropshire, who we were working alongside, who were delivering a lot of our open courses as well. So we're super grateful for all of those organisations who contributed towards making the Parish, Town Community Councils course. It's about a year old now, and we've had some great success with it. So we're really happy to see lots of different parish, town councils getting involved too. So carbon literacy, what is that? It is low carbon culture change training. So essentially it's thinking about everyday actions that we might do in our normal personal life or in our work life, and the carbon emissions attached to those as well. The aim of the training is to make sure people understand their carbon emissions that attach to those different actions and can form an action plan to lower them as part of the training. So I'll go on to talk about the courses that we have as part of our local authorities suite. We had 5 courses in our suite until very recently, and I'll just outline a bit about that. We have general staff course, which is great for mixed cohorts. We also have leadership and management, an elected members course, the parish, town and communities course. And as well, we had our community leaders course too, which was super useful for lots and lots of different applications. We're super lucky that we've had a new communities coordinator join us just a few weeks ago. So she's taking care of the community leaders course going forward. And that's Anne-Marie, and I will put her email in for those of you who are interested in working alongside your communities to leverage carbon literacy too. So we have all 5 of these courses. Now I'm looking after 4 of them, and we've just come through a really exciting updates period. So I've been spending the last 6 months planning, plotting, chatting to collaborators, and updating all of the toolkit materials, which you'll be able to access going forward. So yeah, we have all of these 4 courses that I mentioned, and those are off-the-shelf courses. So you can buy them, they come fully complete, ready to go, and you can roll them out almost instantly on receiving the materials. But it's important to say as well that we also really are proud of the flexibility of carbon literacy. So you can actually create your own course that's unique and bespoke to your context. So we've had a lot of different councils who've taken advantage of that, and I'm going to share a couple of case studies around that in a moment as well. But what I'll talk about first is the structure of the courses, just really quickly for those of you who are with us who might not know. So the idea of carbon literacy is that climate change, science, policy, and then taking action can't really be done in like an hour's worth of CPD. There's a lot to understand, and there's a lot to plan together as a team in your organizations. So each of the training courses have to take between 7 to 8 hours. And we have what we would call a transformational arc. And I'll explain what I mean about that. The first half of the course can be quite heavy. As you can imagine, you have to go into all of the climate science and policy, understand all of that, and also the values around it, things like climate justice and how it affects different areas of the world. So this can feel quite heavy, and there's a lot to understand and just coming to terms with the situation we're in now. But the really great thing about carbon literacy training is that from the middle of the day onwards, we're thinking about positive action. We're planning in our teams like what actions we can take to lower carbon emissions across our organizations and putting them into effect together as well. So the great thing about carbon literacy is that it's peer-to-peer learning. There has to be a trainer who's got experience in your context to deliver the training, so that we know that understanding is really embedded in the learning that comes across. So yeah, it's a really exciting course, and we get so much great feedback about it. I wanted to share as well that we've had the really great milestone this year of reaching 100,000 certified learners in carbon literacy. That was back, I think, in April or May, and we've since sailed past that to 114,000. And I have to say that 10% of them actually come from the local authority sector. So we're doing great. And I should say within that as well, well over 100 parish councils now have 1 or more members trained, which is awesome. And we're coming up to about 100 town councils as well. So a little bit of healthy competition there. If you're from a town council and you want to try and beat parish councils, there's that. So yeah, we're really proud of how things have been going across the sectors as well. We've actually just sort of more widely across the sort of like broader set of sectors, just created a course for the digital and tech sector. As you can imagine, that's a hot topic at the moment with things like AI and all of the stuff to do with emissions around that use. So we're really excited to be working across more and more sectors as we develop and grow. We've been growing a lot over the last year. So Thinking about the role of local authorities, as an organisation, local authorities probably have direct control over 2% of UK emissions, but the emissions under the influence of local authorities of whatever level accounts for about 33%. So we have huge potential as a sector to make a really, really massive change. And personally, for me, I see parish, town, community councils as pivotal in this because of your closer link to communities and, leveraging that and rippling the learning out into communities is one of the things that I've been working really hard on over the last 6 months, and really want to work more closely with more parish and town councils. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Parish Town Councils course and then provide you with some case studies of what's already come off the back of some of our carbon literacy training. So as I was saying, our Parish, Town and Community Councils course, it's about a year old, and it was co-written and piloted by Parish and Town Councils. So it's got that really embedded applied learning. You can deliver it internally in your organisations, or we can pair you with an external trainer who has experience in the local authority sector. Something that we're really proud of around this course as well is that we keep it free for parish and town councils to access. We understand that funding can be really tight, and that some organisations are incredibly small and don't have a big staff unit. So we want to keep this access free for parish and town community councils. The only cost that you would have as an organisation is the £10 per learner certification application fee. And yeah, as I said, this course really examines how to ripple out the work widely into communities, and it includes loads of showcase examples of what parish and town councils have been up to, including this one, which is Farnham and Hovingham Parish Council, and how they've embedded repair cafes. I'm not sure if many of you have your own repair cafes and circular bits and bobs going on for the circular economy aspect of carbon emissions, but this has been such a great initiative. It's really taken off in Farnham and Hovingham. So yeah, this case study of promoting a circular economy is in our toolkits, and there's a lot of other ones in there too, around things including community energy, use of solar, bulk purchasing, and all of that sort of stuff too. So there's loads of great inspiration in the course, which we're really proud of, and it helps people, just instead of having that blank canvas, to have some examples of what's already gone really well. So yeah, in terms of promoting our work with parish, town and community councils, I'm just trying to make sure that we can spread the word as much as possible that the course is free for parish, town councils to access. And we've also been really championing a collaborative partnership working style too. So we've had some great relationship building with NALC, National Association of Local Councils, this year. I sat on their Star Council Climate Award panel, which was really exciting. It was so nice and so inspiring to see what so many councils are up to in their own areas. So keeping working with organisations like SOS, Save Our Shops, who I just want to take some time to really thank them for delivering so much of our open course capacity. They're having to cease functioning. So what's happening off the back of the amazing work of Save Our Shropshire is that in order for parish town councils to access an open course to begin getting people trained, we'll be moving to a waiting list model. So you'll need to get in touch with me to tell me that you'd like to get someone in your parish town council trained, and then I will be putting you in touch with a great organisation that we're working alongside called Speak Carbon Collective. So yeah, I'll put my email address into the chat at the end when I finish chatting, and you can get in touch with me and I can make sure that you get lined up for one of those open courses that will be coming from next year. So now I've chatted to you a bit about where carbon literacy is at as an organisation, the course itself. I've got 3 case studies that I just wanted to chat you through so you can see some of the different approaches that councils have had using carbon literacy and some of the great stuff that's come out of the training as a result. So the council I wanted to start off with is actually Lyme Regis Town Council, and they've been doing some amazing work there. So yeah, I wanted to just point out Lyme Regis Town Council, who worked alongside Dorset Climate Action Network and the then Belinda Borden councillor, who was like really like a key proponent in pushing forward the training within Lyme Regis Town Council. So a big thanks to the both of them and to Belinda. But Lyme Regis did super well, and they became the first town council to achieve silver carbon literate organisation status. So this is like an additional pathway that we offer to any organisation doing carbon literacy training. They can meet a few different criteria and work their way up from being a bronze organisation all the way up to platinum. So Lyme Regis became the first town council to achieve silver, which is a really great feat. It's not easy to get there. There's quite a high criteria for staff numbers trained. And they managed to get more than 60% of their councillors trained at the time this was printed. So that was back in March, and a significant proportion of their internal staff too. So it was a huge effort, and they did really, really well. Some of the actions that came out of the training with Lyme Regis included installing solar panels on their office buildings, adding EV or electric vehicle chargers into public car parks. And they also managed to shift 30% of the council's vehicles over to electric as well. So some really great actions. And I've got an example here. What I'll do is I'll send the PowerPoint slides at the end of this so that they can get distributed and you can have a look through everything. But it's Caroline Eldridge who I've got an example from Lyme Regis, and she's a town councillor. And one of the things that she had pledged was to work alongside other agencies like Dorset Council and the Highways Agency to plan on improving public transport and limit car use around Lyme. And recently, I've seen a really great pledge come through from our certifications team about work that's starting or hoping to be started in the area for a carbon neutral highway. So it seems like the momentum is still continuing in the region, which is fab to see. So yeah, that was our example of one of our town councils, but I also wanted to give you a couple of other case studies from other councils, which have slightly different approaches to using carbon literacy and the aims that they have around it. So the next one that I wanted to talk to you guys about was a Welsh council. This is actually Caerphilly Council in Wales, and they have decided to make a course of carbon numeracy, which I love. I think that's really exciting. So what they decided to do was, in order to get the funding to create the course, they noticed that there was a pot of UK central government funding called Multiply. And the idea around this funding is to increase the general public's numeracy skills. So they knew they wanted to teach the general public about carbon emissions, and they knew that they wanted to up people's skills in numeracy too. So they decided to marry the two ideas together and create a course called Carbon Numeracy. This is a really exciting idea. So it's a public-facing course, and it's going to be run in adult education centres over a series of weeks. So maybe more like 5 to 8 weeks instead of what internally councils might do, which might be half a day one week and half a day the next week. So this one is going to be public facing. It's using some Welsh funding. So they've had to meet the criteria for some Welsh funding, as well as our criteria to get the course accredited. And the really exciting thing about what Caerphilly are doing is, whereas some generally the courses work towards you making your actions at the end, Caerphilly want to combine the actions into the course itself. So at the beginning, you'll think, or the learners will think about actions around numeracy and maths and carbon emissions, and playing with different things in their day-to-day life. So it could be turning down the thermostat on their boiler by 1 degree and seeing what comes out of that with their maths as well. So by combining the actions into the course, we might be able to see in real time the carbon emissions changes that come out of the learning. So that was Caerphilly's, and they've already, as part of our Carbon Literacy Action Day programme, that was back in November, some of you might know, and I'll drop a link to our World Tour webinar. Carbon Literacy Action Day is a campaign we run in carbon literacy, which tries to get the most number of learners certified in carbon literacy across the world in one day. So Caerphilly managed to get their pilot for carbon numeracy done on this day and include it into all of our stats around that. So they enjoyed the pilot and got some really great feedback about it to help them tweak and improve their course. So really big props to Carefully for this exciting sort of venture into public-facing carbon literacy with a slight twist towards maths. So that's our Welsh example. And then finally, I wanted to highlight one last example from Warrington Borough Council. That's closer to Manchester. And Warrington really wanted to examine how to push the momentum from the carbon literacy training and not lose it. And the way they decided to do this was to apply for some Innovate UK funding, which they were successful at and won, to create this program of working groups. So everyone who took the carbon literacy training in Warrington Borough Council could choose to be part of a working group on carbon emissions subsequent to the training. So they have 3 different working groups: transport and mobility, buildings and infrastructure, and procurement and commissioning. Those qualified through the carbon literacy training didn't have to have a job that's specific to any of those working groups, but just an interest or a passion around it. And then they got put into these working groups to continue the momentum going forward, to make sure there's cross-departmental discussion and some really live, interesting debate around how to lower their emissions in these areas as a council. So really excited to see how that turns out for Warrington. They're going to have all 3 of the working groups together for a context setting session, and then split off into 3 different pathways to think about their net zero commitments, strategic planning, innovation and action planning, and then come back together to share learning. So yeah, 3 examples from Warrington, Carefully and Lyme Regis. And I think I've probably talked for long enough, talked your ears off, but you can get in touch with me. I'll drop the email in, as I was saying, and the link to sign up for our newsletter as well. And yeah, I'm just happy to take any questions, and thank you so much. I hope it wasn't too difficult to follow without the slides, but yeah, I'll pass back to you, Andrew. Thank you so much. Or Graham, maybe.
Yeah, long pause whilst we're working out who's going to answer you. I'll leave it to Andrew. He's got the ball so far.
Thanks very, very much. I mean, that was amazing. And your enthusiasm for what you're doing just shines through every sentence. It's incredible. And that alone is just a really inspiring thing to hear about. Thank you, so kind. Yes, great news all round. And I'm sure that there will be other topics, people that want to say things. Please send us that presentation now, because what we'll do is we'll put it up together on the knowledge base together with this recording, so that people can see the whole deal.
I'll send that across to you now, and I'll just start popping those links into the chat as well.
Yeah, no, the carbon numeracy is great. Many years ago, when I was working in another sphere, there was this issue that people were very keen that numeracy was as much an issue as literacy in schools, because people were feeling that people can talk about literacy generally, but numeracy was felt by the people I was talking to as an almost more important and certainly a larger issue to attend to. So it's fascinating to hear that that's coming into the carbon world as well. And of course, when we're looking at we've got a big lottery bid in at the moment to do some work with the Great Collaboration in East Anglia, and one of the issues is, of course, measuring and monitoring what the outcome of what we'll all be doing over there. And so numbers come into that quite importantly in terms of, kilowatt hours of renewable energy generated, and of course tons of carbon emissions reduced. So there we go. Graham, sir, you have your hand up.
It's actually a question for Amanda rather than Abby. Sorry, Abby. But I'm curious about Amanda's comment that we should be looking at the immersive experience room in the library in the suburb of Cheltenham. Do you have a link for that by any chance?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, very happy to put you in touch. I'm not sure if I can do it in time whilst our...
Is it Cheltenham Kings, Amanda?
No, it's I want to say Oakley, but I need to double check that. I've been there. I was there for its launch, and basically it's a room in the library that it's a relatively small room, but it's much bigger than a broom cupboard, And as a maths teacher, I got involved with the national numeracy champions about 18 months ago through Multiply, maybe 2 years ago now. And this particular room is kitted out so that as you walk through the room, the sides of the room, the projections all move around you so that you feel like you're walking inside it. So I could really see how, I mean, it was set up for supermarkets, for example, for best buys and best value. But given that the room has been invested in and is set up, then different programs can be commissioned at relatively affordable marginal cost, and then you can run that session. So I never thought of doing it with climate numeracy before, but what a fabulous idea. So I've got national contacts as well as the local contacts in Gloucestershire, and particularly the Cheltenham Library resource as well. So it's not Cheltenham Library, it's this small community library. You know where the Sainsbury's is, not far from the hospital, kind of you turn up off the road. I don't know Cheltenham well enough. I'm sure it's called Oakley, but let me double check the details and I'll pop it in chat.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, and we all, 'cause as we know, we all learn in different ways, and this is another way of getting people engaged that might struggle in other ways. All very good news. Claudine, your hand is up.
And it's fun, Andrew.
Of course it is.
So all the family come along and they
Yes.
don't feel like they're being lectured or,
Yeah.
you know, it's just fun. That's what's so good
Yes.
about it.
Yes, your life is a succession of joy, Amanda. Yes. Claudine.
My question is, just thinking about the pledges and thinking forward to speaking to town and parish councils and the actions, collective actions that they can take, can they also, if they don't have buildings, if they don't have car parks, but they may have playing fields, are there actions that they can take that are not necessarily reducing carbon emissions, but about increasing nature, i.e. swallowing up carbon dioxide? Does that count? Because
yeah,
it's only
that's a really interesting one. And in my previous job, I worked alongside WECA, West of England Combined Authority, on the local nature recovery strategy, and really see like how biodiversity is part of that whole carbon emissions cycle. In carbon literacy, our mission is to mitigate carbon emissions. So we take those sorts of like nature actions on a case by case basis, but they need to be significantly more than planting some trees as part of a small scale project. What we do encourage is things around like working alongside planning departments, using that section 106 leverage and community infrastructure levies. I know that was their technical consultation through the last government, and we're still kind of waiting to see what's going to happen there. But I think leveraging that sort of stuff around planning can be really powerful as well. And that can include those sorts of like BNG, biodiversity net gain stuff, and thinking about infrastructure for new planning developments and stuff like that too. I hope that helps a little bit.
Is there a bit of a menu anywhere, just encouraging our town and parish councils rather than racking their brains and putting them on the spot?
We do have some pledge inspiration documents which I can share, but I'm actually also looking to create one more bespoke to parish town councils, because I know that their remit is slightly different. So I'm always looking for case studies. So if you or anyone you know has a great parish town council that you would like to be a case study as part of carbon literacy, we're really interested to hear from them as well, and use like their great like learning and things to.
I do. And what
I
I'm
thought you
thinking
might,
is, yeah,
Claudine.
I do, and I have lots of them. What they don't know is probably the measure of it.
Okay,
you know, they'll
great.
say we've done a thing, and you go, great, you've done a thing. I don't know, and they don't know just how many carbons they've reduced.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think because of carbon literacy's like wide like breadth of scope, for us as well, like collecting that impact data back in is such a huge task. So yeah, working off the back of case studies and seeing things put into action is our first port of call before we get this huge academic research piece done. So yeah, but I'd be really interested to chat with you more about that, Claudine, so we can get a meeting booked in if it suits you, or email, or whatever you fancy.
Well, that's great, because we're looking to include a process for that measuring within our pilot in East Anglia, which is in Cambridgeshire, Essex, Norfolk and Suffolk. So yes, let's keep in touch on this one. Great. Michelle.
Hi there. I'm not a parish councillor. I have a local eco group, and we're working closely with our parish council, and they've done a lot. But I've been trying to get them to take our local zero carbon communities training, and really people have just been too busy. They've been overwhelmed. And so my question is, how transformative is the training? And do you find that the councils that you're working with are sort of already on a path, or do you ever get councils that aren't on a path yet that actually take the training and are transformed? I'd like to see this become more of a priority for the council, rather than kind of me pushing an agenda which they're kind of agreeing to but not maybe understanding.
Yeah, totally understand. I think Carefully is a great example of that. They took the training and then came up with all these creative ideas around carbon numeracy, and I guess that's quite transformative. But I appreciate what you're saying, and sometimes within organizations, whatever sector they might be in, there happens to be someone who's really passionate about climate change and sustainability, who drives everything forward. And if they happen to leave, then things can sometimes fall by the wayside. So that is something that we try to build into the course. And I think the beginning of the course has some quite emotive material in it. There's some quite sort of intense, like, testimonial videos from people who've experienced climate change. And I think incorporating that like emotive aspect has been like a really strong, powerful incentive for people to then go ahead and really make that change. So overall, I'd say like we've had some really great transformations, definitely. But I do appreciate what you're saying. Sometimes it's that one person who's making the change. But in terms of just answering another point that you made, around people being super busy, just wanted to say that yes, I completely understand that, and we feel that within councils as well, particularly when we try to get our C-suite engaged. So sometimes it's been really effective to chop the training down. Instead of trying to get people to book an entire day or even half a day, to run the training in, say, 2-hour sessions. And they could be in the evening, online, just so it's a bit more flexible for people. They might be able to join from public transport if their signal's good enough, and all of that sort of stuff, just to try and make sure that there's as much flexibility as possible for people to kind of make sure they can join. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I'm drafting the new iteration of their climate emergency plan.
Oh, fab.
For them to then look at, and they did a lot of the previous plan, so I need to make it harder. It's quite easy the first
Next steps, yeah. Well, that's nice. That's really great. Well done. So you've obviously managed to lead them up the sort of different trail.
Nice. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I should also, which is relevant to this, we're looking at a process of training people to help to train others, in terms so that we can have, we can only do a certain amount with a certain number of people and a certain amount of funding. But if we can train people that can then go out and train more people and help, start more revolutions around their area, we'll be looking to be doing that as well. And of course, apart from anything else, parish councils are at different positions as well. They're not all the same in terms of where they are in space with this, as Michelle's very clearly described. And
I think that's another way of like making impact as well. So if different like sized councils and parishes don't have buildings or don't have access to like making those choices around installing EVs, a really great action is that I'm going to train someone within our organization, and then they're going to train 10 people, and then those 10 people are going to train our community. So that is an also like really viable action as well.
Yeah. Some parish chairmen still think it's all a plot, by the way. So there we go. Never mind. David Newman, sir.
Right. Before anyone does a course, what is it that gets councillors or councils to actually even think of getting carbon literacy training?
Great, good question. I think that I love working in the sector because we've got a really important commitment to work to, which is our net zero sort of legislation, regulation that's come down from central government. So we, as a sector, we're obliged to work towards net zero, which is obviously limiting those emissions. And I think that local authorities themselves are just really proactive in declaring things around climate emergency, and obviously deal with lots of the immediate effects of climate change, whether that's flooding, resource vulnerability, all kinds of things like that. So I think that we get a range of different things. Sometimes they're just interested themselves and they've heard about carbon literacy training through word of mouth. And sometimes they've heard about it through coming along to a webinar with us. So there's loads of different access points for local authorities, and we see lots of different ways that they found out about us and want to get involved.
Yes, except that the government targets don't actually apply to parish councils.
I guess it's like that sort of relationship of the principal authority and the parish town council, and we're trying to encourage closer and closer working relationships there as well, so that obviously local authorities who might have more resource can support and help their parish councils to work towards the same objectives that they're working towards too. But I think the community aspect is a really important part of what parish town councils can do as well, by involving the community and helping them to be part of action locally where they are, so they can see the direct benefit of training is really important too.
If I could just add in there, David, last week we got a presentation about the local sports people and how they're all suffering from having cancelled matches and pitches being unplayable, and how on earth they're going to get worse and that sort of thing. And if you can get the sports coaches and people to start complaining to the council, maybe that will help.
Yes, well, that's exactly the sort of problem. So people agree that we need adaptation and they're suffering, but they don't think they are responsible for the problem. In one of the 20% most deprived areas, it's the greedy rich bastards elsewhere who's causing it on us, and we need help in adaptation, not reducing our CO2 emissions.
Yeah, I think it can be one of those really interesting points to make around that sort of grassroots action and top-down action too. So yes, we should demand that people in positions of power to make huge decisions that will have a really massive impact act, but we can also do things on a community level as well. There's a really great example. I'm in Bristol. There's a really great example of a landowner reinstating a wetland area. So sort of re-encouraging that area to reduce flooding impacts. So yeah, there's kind of call for both, isn't there? And I can totally understand. And that's something that we've included in the new updates for the courses around climate justice and who bears the brunt of climate change as it happens. And yeah, we're really proud of one of the new tools that we've got in the training, which is actually a really granular level map detailing vulnerabilities to both heat and flooding as well. So we're trying to keep in all of this granular level detail so people can really zoom in to their locality and see how they can make a change in a particular way.
I can see we're going to have to ask you back again in 2025, Abby, because things are moving apace, and we need to keep in close touch with you because this is all brilliant, brilliant stuff.
Indeed.
And we're also, David Morgan-Jones and I are talking separately about strengthening the links between parishes and high-level authorities, which we all agree is a necessary step. Thank you, David. Gary Ford.
Actually, that really just segues right into my question beautifully. I couldn't have planned it any better, because my question was actually about climate change as a fast-moving subject. So I was just wondering, how often are you updating your resources to reflect the current situation?
Yeah, so I can testify to the fact that updating our materials is a mammoth task. So for every course we have, there are several pieces within that which need to get updated alongside it too. So not only is it the PowerPoint slides, which are used as the lesson or the training itself, it's also all of the supporting materials like the trainer guide, the running order, and everything as well. So ideally, I would love to update the training materials every month, but we have to be realistic and think what we can actually action across 6 courses and pathways that we have. So what I try to do in local authorities is to supplement our training with as many like webinars, articles, resources and things as possible. So if you scroll back through the chat, you'll see that there is my link to sign up for the newsletter, local authorities newsletter. And I try to do a roundup of various different bits of policy and keep on top of things for you guys and share it all that way as well. So where the courses need a bit more time and planning to be updated on a super regular level, I do try and supplement all of those materials with that additional supporting resource as well. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. Year-round employment. Very good. That's great. Thanks so much for that, Abby. David Morgan-Jones.
2 questions. All the small level initiatives that you undertake, like repair cafes, is there an associated carbon reduction score against each activity?
What that we've created as like a
Yeah.
framework internally?
Yeah.
We haven't created a framework internally, and that is to recognize that the emissions attached to all different actions have such wild variations. So the thing that we work on is to look at the case studies of actions that have been taken and keep in touch with those people around like what has been sort of taken forward as well. But we do have things like where we signpost people to like things around BNG, biodiversity net gain, where obviously an ecologist is brought on board and they might like monitor a piece of land, give it a score, and then come back in a year or so and score it again.
I suppose, Abby, where I'm coming from is that, you know, rather picking up David Newman's point, the enthusiasm in the general population that I'm experiencing is pretty low. And if we're going to try and make a difference, a real difference, particularly at the parish level, we've got to pick those things that are going to be big wins. In other words, really focus on the big stuff. And if the little stuff happens to be picked up, that's great. But actually, let's focus our time and energy and enthusiasm on those areas that are going to really make a difference.
Agreed.
That's the first thing. The second thing, it's slightly maybe off kilter to what you're doing. Well, again, it's about how do you educate, engage fairly passive / indifferent sort of parish populations to actually engage with this process. Now, we at a tier 3 local authority level have been sent, as usual, a completely useless piece of policy by the previous government, and probably even more useless by the next government, which it tells us what we're supposed to do, but doesn't actually give us the funding or the wherewithal to actually do it. And therefore, we are going to have to scrabble around trying to find funding to be able to go through certain iterations. But it's about how do we take that carbon literacy education and make it engaging to a wider population, and almost making up Amanda's point, where they feel as though they're not being lectured to, and they're absorbing it, and hopefully begin to get slightly more engaged with the process.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, there's so many different applications for carbon literacy, and we don't have to stick with a sort of classroom style of delivery if we don't want to. And that's why I think like some of the creativity of the councils we've worked alongside has really come to shine through. So we've had obviously the carbon numeracy initiative, which I've loved, like working alongside Carefully on that. But something else that I've picked up on as part of like the listening and sort of research that I do alongside updating everything is around an organization who made a program called Britain Talks Climate. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but it sort of like breaks down the population into different groups of what might motivate them to act on climate change. And there's about 12 or 13 subcategories of things like progressive activist to like traditional backbone conservative and all the things in between. And they found that the one topic that cuts across all of those different subsections of motivation to act is nature. Everyone wants to protect nature. You can't find someone, if you said, would you rather destroy this wood or keep it? You can't find anyone who say, I'd like to destroy it, please. So we found that there's been some really creative ideas around incorporating nature into the accredited, unique, bespoke courses. So this has to be done in a careful way and can be done alongside our accreditations team. But for example, taking people out and teaching them how to create their own community gardening plot, and then making the learning fold into how does that reduce your transport emissions for food, and then sort of like turn things around in this way is totally possible as well. So I think there's scope for it to not have to be a sort of PowerPoint classroom type delivery if you've got the resource. And I appreciate that sometimes the funding is the thing that holds us back from creating these new courses as well.
I suppose what I'm looking at is away from courses. I mean, my parish covers properties going from about 6 million to about 500,000. So with the majority in the million mark. And most of them don't have gardens and not interested. Well, they have big gardens, huge gardens, but they're not interested in self-sustaining because they've got wealth enough to it doesn't matter to them. And so it's about how do we actually provide hooks for them to engage in critical things. For example, just insulation. There's a lot of properties we have no idea what their EPC scores are, for example, and the insulation, which would make a significant difference. Work on generating local generation of power with all the positives that come with that. So I think it's about trying to get the messaging and do it in a way that meets the unique specifics of a particular parish.
Yeah, and absolutely agree with you. And yeah, it's really interesting thinking about the sort of approaches that you can take to get different people engaged. And I think it'll probably come back to nature again being a really popular thing that people across all different strata of society want to protect. But I think that, yeah, it's something that we want to work more on is like the hearts and minds piece behind the training. So
absolutely,
I think that that's the really affecting part that I was explaining to one of our other attendees about as well, is that sort of emotive part of the training that's thinking about the future. Maybe they have families that they want to protect, you know, they have children that they want to make sure that they can still access, or that the land they live on isn't a floodplain. So I think there's sort of like a lot of great work to be done with schools. We've actually just hired a schools coordinator as well, so that they can have a sort of community impact from the school level outwards as well. And that obviously ties into local authorities in lots of different ways as well. But something I'm really interested in, and sort of like creating different pathways to access the learning. So if you wanted to have like a separate chat about that, I would be really open to welcome that conversation for sure.
Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Amanda.
Continuing beautiful segues. Hello, Abby, and everybody. And thank you for this. It's, as usual, it's sparked off so many different avenues. But while we just talk about segueing in on the schools side, we have a project within Cotswold National Landscape. So on Everyone's Even Load, for example, and also on, oh gosh, I can't remember it now, but the project name anyway involves a member of staff whose job it is to do this. It's exactly around educating for nature and working with young people.
Is it the National Education Nature Park where schools have to try and like improve the biodiversity of their school grounds?
No, but I want to know about that. If you say that again and I'll write that down.
National Education Nature Park. I sort of feel as though it's a really great initiative, but teachers are already quite stretched. So asking them to go ahead and improve the biodiversity of their school grounds might be a bit of a struggle.
However, in our case, we've got this person within Cotswold National Landscape. It happens to be that they're headquartered in my village, where our parish council is, and I'm a councillor, and they're looking for places to get these youngsters engaged with, pieces of land and what have you. And hello, your school playing grounds, you know, and putting boundaries around things. Anyway, they're doing the borders and what have you. But I just mentioned that we, you know, if that was something offline that would be a good connection, then the national landscapes, some of them have projects that are very much about, because after the Glover report, it was about improving access for those people that wouldn't typically have engaged. And so young people being the future generations that will access is a great big one for us. But the term co-benefits, I'm not sure if you said that, but that's what you teach, isn't it, on the carbon?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of the course as well. Thinking about if you take one action towards like limiting climate change, it can actually have a wealth of other positive effects as well.
So don't talk climate change, talk about nature, talk about cost of living crisis and what you can save, and talk about all these other things. Oh, and by the way, it's good for the climate. Which might sound a bit manipulative if it's done that, obviously, but actually you can just do it naturally.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to go back to why I originally put my hand up, because they were all said since I did. The carbon literacy qualification, and you mentioned about Save Our Shropshire.
Yeah.
I believe that the SLCC, so the Society of Local Council Clerks training, which my council paid for me to go on alongside another councillor, I had connection issues on the second of the 2 half days. And they said they'd try and get me in on another one, but obviously that opportunity's gone. So I really would like to just get signed off so that there's one more kind of accredited person. And given that I'm a qualified teacher, I'd love to do the train the trainer and spread it out. And the other quick thing to say is in Bourton, our parish council had set up through its parish environment committee an environment action working group. But it then found that because it was parish council, it had all that bureaucracy, it couldn't quite resource itself to keep going, producing the minutes, putting out the notices. So we've set up something that's a lot looser now. And when I say we, I mean a group of residents. And we've called it Bourton S Network, or it could be shortened to Bourton's Network. Yeah, but the S is for sustainability. And we write about things in the monthly magazine that goes around the village. And we're setting up different subgroups and WhatsApp groups. And we're just making it so that it hasn't got this sort of bureaucratic structure. And very inspired by this, Banter sessions, you know, and the great collaboration. What I'm trying to do is set something up that will have its own life. It'll ebb and flow. But if somebody comes into the village that's interested in EVs, then they can join the EV group and work out where to park or how to share or whatever it is on the car front. If somebody else is interested in bats and swift boxes and owls, and then we can put them into that group, and citizen science and getting people in the water and testing, and then put them into our flood group of parish council. But we're not putting out a call saying parish council under their flood committee would like to recruit volunteers because that then just puts people off, what we found.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're exactly on the mark there as well. And I think there is a lot to be gained from thinking about it in that co-benefits way. So what can we all gain as a community if we do A, B, and C action? For example, if we did start a community garden, perhaps we could all share the harvest, and then we've limited some of our food miles or saved some money on our food bill just by spending an hour a week each on this resource together. So yeah, there's loads to be gained from taking this approach. And sounds like you've got a great initiative going on there in Bourton as well.
It's right at the beginning. And I want everybody here to know that parish councils, you know, even those of us that have got one or two real kind of strong proponents of this, struggle with their parish council momentum and getting people away from dealing with the must-dos to the what they see as nice to haves.
And seeing how they're all joined together, and actually you can get the nice to haves by doing the like have to do's as well.
And climate change isn't a nice to have. I just want to make sure everybody knows that I don't think that. It's a must have, but it's how you go about it, isn't it?
Indeed.
So just a massive big thank you for your session, Abby.
No, thank you so much for coming, and I'm sure you'll be able to see the slides. Sorry that they didn't work straight away, but I've got them all sent across to Graham, so you should be able to distribute them. And you'll be able to have a look through at your leisure, and I'll have a look into like finding a course so you can get the second half of your training done as well. That sounds like something which you should be able to solve without too much hassle, hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll catch up with you after. Thank you.
And feel free to get back to me if there's a thing around SLCC, because I've got a pipeline in there as well.
Thank you very much,
in general terms, communication is the name of the game these days. This is the big thing. We need to spend as much time on that as almost anything else at the moment. And certainly the good practice of how people can get engaged also needs to be shared. There's not going to be, there's a lot of stuff out there on the one hand, but there's a lot of different ways people can get involved on the other. And Amanda, you've just given us a great run through the different ways there. So as I say many a time, and I say it every day, and I'll say it again, let us go forward together. And we'll never surrender, because we need to do all of these things and help other people to do it too. Absolutely. Well, it's been a brilliant session so far. We're just coming up to the hour. Sound like a DJ, don't I? It's time for the news from whoever it is. But Graham has his hand up.
Just wanted to say that next week, Linda Aspey will be back. And for those of you who've been on before, excuse me, Linda is the lady who terrifies you and reassures you in the same sentence or first half second. So if you enjoy being absolutely horrified at the state of your mind and your anxiety levels and everything else, and then need a helping hand to get you out of that abyss, then it's well worth coming to Linda's show next week.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for coming today.
Yeah. Great stuff. Abby, thank you so much for coming along. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and inspiration. And you will be receiving your calls from us. We will not let you rest. We will keep in touch with you. Are there any more questions for Abby around the table before we close the session? Because it's been a great session. None more for today, it appears. This recording and Abby's presentation will be put up on the knowledge base before. Oh, Amanda.
Yeah, just a reminder to Abby that she promised she'd put her email address in the chat.
Oh, I think it is in there. I'll put it in at the bottom again, just in case it's been swiped by the other ones. But
I do apologise. Thank you, Abby.
No worries. I'll just pop it in now before we all part ways.
It's the regular. It's the one that's been there from before, isn't it? Local Authorities Act.
That's correct. Yeah, but I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming along, and it's been such an interesting session and great to hear what you're up to and try and support you. And as ever, please just do get in touch. I want to keep the momentum going, and it's people like you who are working where you are to make a really massive difference, which just is part of what carbon literacy is, and we couldn't do it without you. So I just want to thank you for all of your hard work as well.
Well said. Well said.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you all next week.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.